All right, guys, so we're reviewing for summative number 6, and the quiz is not necessarily in this order, but this is the order the review is in. 1.6, the topic is operations and composition of functions, and we're supposed to be able to add, subtract, multiply, and divide functions and create compositions and find their domain restrictions here. You can find more practice in these places. All right, so number 1 says, what is the domain of this function? Now you can graph this, but what happens so often when students graph is they don't get the exact point, okay? Guys, you should all be able to tell me, domain is all real numbers, except when there's a radical, you have to set what's underneath what? Greater than or equal to 0. Okay, so for f of x up here, what's underneath the radical is this, and that quantity has to be greater than or equal to 0. So if I subtract 1, I get greater than or equal to -1. How do I write that as an interval notation? Okay, if you graph it, it is shifted left 1, down 3, and going like this maybe. But the issue is you have to find that exact x value for the domain. Okay. Number 2 says add function f and h together. Is there anything I can combine from f and h, or am I just going to have a whole list of terms? Yes. So in any order, I'm going to have a term that says 2x squared. I'm going to have a negative square root of x plus 1. But the 4 and the -3 I can combine and put a plus 1. So those 3 things in any order, anybody have a question about that? Okay, it would have a domain restriction, but if it doesn't ask for it, you're fine. Yes, Kevin? Because I combined the 4 with the -3 back here, the combined like term. That's okay, I'd rather you asked. Yep, you're good. Everybody okay? And it could be listed in any order. All right, number 3 says multiply g and h, and you are expected to simplify that. So we're multiplying these two. 2x squared plus 4. Simplify, remember, does not mean factor. It means multiply it out. All right, anybody do that for me? Negative 8x cubed. Okay, what else? Okay. Okay, and don't factor, guys. Don't pull out a common factor. Don't do anything. That's it. If there were like terms that combined, though, make sure you combine them. Okay. What about h minus g? This one scares me a little bit because if you write down h and you're supposed to subtract g, what are people going to forget to do? Yeah, distribute the negative, right? If you're subtracting all of g, you're subtracting this and this. So you end up with a 2x squared plus 4 minus -4 would be plus another 4 and minus this 5. Oh, this one had an x. Just kidding. Okay. So if I combine like terms, anybody? There's a 2x squared. This one doesn't have a squared. Okay. 2x squared plus 4x and a minus 1. Okay, so everybody okay? So what would concern me that you would get the wrong last term here because you forgot to distribute the negative. All right, number 5. Remember, there's 2 ways to do this. We can put all of function h into function g and then put the -6 in, or does anybody remember the easier way? Yeah, just put the -6 into what first? H, and then whatever that answer is into g. Okay, so -6 into h. Be careful, watch your signs. Some of you still struggled with this when we did this on a quiz. A negative squared should become what? Positive. So this should be 76 maybe? Yeah. No, because this is a composition of functions. So you have to put, you can put function h into g and combine them one inside the other and then put in a -6. If you're going to do it in steps, you got to go backwards. Because now we have to put the 76 into g. What? Is it everybody okay with where I got 76? Okay. 76 into g would be -4 times 76 plus 5. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Somebody helping me? It's negative. Someone else get that? Everybody okay? Do you want me to show the other method? Put the whole h into g? Sounds miserable to me. All right. Number 6 is if you have these two functions, okay, so we've redefined what f and g are for this question, and it says find this. Which one are we putting inside which one? F into g. So we're putting this down here. So we will have 1 over 2x squared minus x plus 5, and then there's a -8 on the back, right? So what will that simplify to? 1 over 2x squared minus x minus 3. Everybody good? Okay. Domain is all real numbers unless there's a radical or an x in the denominator. How do we find the domain restrictions? Yes, good job. The only way to make a 2x squared is a 2x and a 1x. The only to make a 3 is a 3 and a 1. Which way do you want me to try? 3 and then 1. And we need a negative positive maybe. Does that work? You have -3x plus 2x, so give me the -1 in the middle. Thank you. Keaton, this is for you. I'll forget to give it to you, so make sure you come get it. 9:45. So very soon. It doesn't say you have to do interval notation here. So you may just go ahead and tell me that x cannot equal what two numbers? Three halves or -1. Everybody okay? Any confusion on that one? There's some that say interval notation, so make sure you're careful, but I'm pretty sure that one does not, because it's just asking the restrictions. All right, 1.7 is the next section on the quiz, and it's inverse functions. And it says the learning targets are determine if it's 1-to-1, know what it means if it's 1-to-1, find the equation of an inverse, verify things are inverses, and graph an inverse. Okay. How do I draw a function that is 1-to-1? Does anybody remember what that means? It means that it passes what? And? So what could I draw? Yeah, I could just draw an oblique line, in other words, not a horizontal or parallel, a perpendicular, oh my gosh, horizontal or vertical line. Yeah, I'll try that again. I could also just draw something like that. Doesn't have to be a line necessarily. And why is this 1-to-1? Because it passes the vertical and horizontal line test. And what does that mean? Does anybody remember? Okay, means its inverse is what? Yes. So it might be a multiple choice question tomorrow. Say which one of these is 1-to-1 or which one of these has an inverse that's a function. Thursday. Yep. The quiz was supposed to mean tomorrow, but there's a bunch of people going to be gone. So everybody good? All right, number 8 says actually find the inverse, and there are 2 find the inverse questions. I expect this one will go a little bit better than the other one because this one only has y and x in one spot each. So right now this says y. To find an inverse, you switch the x and the y. And then you need to isolate the y. Ideas? You have to do your algebra first. So yes, going to subtract that 3 over there first. Then we're going to cube. Well, actually, this is a big old negative out here. I don't know what you mean, the other thing. Yeah, we don't need to cross multiply on this one if that's what you're thinking about. That's going to be the next one when there's x in 2 places. I think we should probably divide everything by -1 right now to get rid of this negative. So over here, we'll get rid of the negative, and over here, we'll get what? Okay. I don't think it's quite this complicated tomorrow, but or on the quiz, whenever the quiz is, what do I need to do to both sides next? Cube both sides. This left side could also be written 3 minus x, if that looks prettier to you. So I have a -x plus 3 quantity cubed, and don't try to distribute the cubed through there. If I made you FOIL that out, you'd actually have to do it times itself 3 times, so just leave it. It's all beautiful just the way it is. And then what would we have left on the right? Y minus 1, and then Kevin says we need to add 1 over here. So we would have y equals -x plus 3 cubed plus 1, which could also be written, okay, just letting you know, you don't need to write. And I'm not going to worry about that, change the y out for the f to the -1, okay? This is what we're supposed to do at the end, but I'm not worried about that. Any questions on that one? All right, this is the one I am worried about. Right now it says y equals. We need to change all the x's and y's. So it will now say x equals y minus 5 over 2y plus 3. Does anybody remember the steps? Does anybody remember how to start it? The important one is eventually you're going to need to factor out the y, okay? Not factory. All right, we're going to cross multiply, isolate the y's on one side. And then we're going to factor and divide. Okay, so cross multiply. Who can tell me how you want to write that step? Because you could go either direction. Anybody? Okay. Go ahead and distribute, and we'll get 2xy plus 3x equals y minus 5. Now we need all the y's on one side. Okay, I heard two. You're going to get an answer that looks different depending which way you move it. Okay? I heard add 5, which would mean I need to subtract 2xy. All right, so over here I have 3x plus 5, and you could have moved them to the other side. It's fine. Just get different signs, but it's equivalent in the end. What do I have over here? Okay, I could write negative 2xy plus y or y minus 2xy, but I can't combine them, right? Anybody lost? You want me to show it differently? Okay, now we're to the factor out the y part. So we leave this side 3x plus 5, but on this side, if we take out the y, be careful. What do you get when you factor out a y here? 1 minus 2x, everybody okay? Or a negative 2x plus 1 if you wrote it in the other order. Now to finish getting the y by itself, we can divide both sides by 1 minus 2x. Yeah, I knew what you meant. That whole thing. Okay, so we have y equals 3x plus 5 over 1 minus 2x. This is equivalent to 3x plus 5 over negative 2x plus 1. It's actually equivalent if you were to change all of the signs, top and bottom, etc., etc. Anybody do it differently and have a question about whether their answer is equivalent? Okay. I guarantee one of these is on the quiz and on the final exam. If you don't get this, pull a remediation on 1.7 and practice some of these with 2 x's and 2 y's. If you do, several of them, you'll remember the pattern. Oh, I have an extra practice here. I'm not going to take time to do this one right now because I don't want to run out of time, but if you want to write this down and try it, I can come back to it at the end if we have time. Anybody want an extra practice on that idea? Everybody got it? Who's wanting it? Okay. All right. How do you graph? I graph the function for you on the quiz. How do you graph the inverse? Yes, you exchange all the x's and y's. So if this ordered pair here is 0, negative 5, this one appears to be 1, negative 4. And maybe out at the end here, we get 8, negative 2. What would those look like when I switch the ordered pairs? Negative 5, 0. Negative 4, 1. And negative 2, 8. Okay. What's it supposed to have done? Reflected across the line. Y equals x through here. Does that look pretty good? Okay. Any questions about that? Plot those carefully, make sure it looks right. All right, the next section, 2.1 is power and radical functions. We're just going to start out with a really rough sketch of this one because these are really hard to do nicely. What was the equation? Can anybody remind me? Negative 3 x to the -5, like that. Okay. So in a standard window, it would look like this. Now, on an older calculator, remember, this is going to look like it ends. Does it end? Okay. And it also actually does not become perfectly horizontal. If you trace out in that direction, you see the y does not change, but it is becoming closer and closer to 0. All right. There aren't going to be any really nice ordered pairs, so I'm just going to draw a really rough sketch. Is that the right shape, guys, or did I do it wrong? That's right? Okay. Okay. Very carefully. Domain is left to right. It's not all real numbers except 0. So how do we write that in interval notation? Okay, range is bottom to top. There is also a gap in that, right? Everybody okay? The intercepts, does it actually touch x or y axis? My sketch isn't very good, but it has none. Is it continuous? Can I draw the whole thing without picking my pencil up? All right. Now, the way this is listed, the x's are back here, so I need one of them to say, whoa, 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 that's not supposed to be an H, Huffbauer. Okay, that one means left side, and a positive x would mean right. And this is end behavior. On the far left, what is this getting closer and closer to? 0. And on the far right? 0. Yes. All right, and then increasing and decreasing, remember, is x intervals, always. But you have to kind of exaggerate what's happening because you can't really tell here, but this is getting close. It's getting higher and higher, and then it goes really high, right? So the whole time it really is going this direction. And what about down here? Yes, it's going the same direction because it was very negative, and the y's are getting bigger and bigger and bigger until they get almost positive. Okay. So they are both increasing, but how do we write it? We can't say all real numbers. This branch would be from an x value of -infinity to 0. And then this branch over here would be from to positive infinity, off to the right. So these are x values, remember? So it is not decreasing at all. I don't know if I put an extra one of these in. Doesn't look like it. I'll try to remember to do one in a minute. Okay. Solve and check for extraneous solutions. Boy, we ran out of time and didn't really finish some of these the other day. So I have some more practice on this tomorrow if you're here. The first one I think you can get. What do we need to do first? Subtract the 5. So we have the 4th root of 128 plus 3x equals 4. And then we need to raise both sides to the 4th power. 256, maybe? Somebody check me out on that side. Okay. And on the left, we just get 128 plus 3x. Then we subtract 128. Does that leave 128? And then we divide by 3, and I don't think that's going to be nice. I'm just going to write 128 over 3. Is that what it is as a fraction if you do a math enter? Okay, you don't want a decimal because it's not going to be exact. All right, so to check this one is going to be a little bit miserable. If I go back to the home screen and I want to type in 5 plus, how do I put the 4th root in? You can do it with the math key, but is there, do you remember what fractional exponent is it? So much easier. 1/4. So I'm going to put parenthesis 128 plus 3 times, and then I'm trying to check if this works. So I'm going to put in parenthesis 128 over 3 for my x. Close both parentheses and then say to the 1/4 power. And I got 9. Is that what we had? Okay. The thing is, it's not going to work if you put it in as a decimal approximation. Any questions on that one? All right. This is the one I'm worried about. Do you remember what we have to do here? We have to square both sides, but we want to leave the radicals on opposite sides. Okay? Which one comes out nice? All of this is under a radical, so squaring it will just be x minus 45. The left-hand side, though, square root of x minus 3 times square root of x minus 3 doesn't cancel. We have to FOIL. What is square root of x times square root of x? Okay. Square root of x times negative 3 is? Oh, x. Sorry. I don't know what I just wrote. Okay. The inside term here is another. And negative 3 times negative 3? Okay. The second thing we want to do is isolate the radicals, because we're going to have to do this again. Okay, if I combine these, what do I get? Okay, can I subtract an x from each side? What'll happen? Yeah, that term is gone. If I subtract 9 over here, I get, I think, negative 54, isn't it? Because it was a negative 45 minus 9 more. All right. What are we going to do next? Yeah, I would divide by the negative 6 for sure, because we want to isolate this before we square it again. So now we have the square root of x equals positive 9. Everybody with me? Square both sides again, and we get x equals 81. Okay, let's go back to the beginning. The square root of 81 minus 3 equals the square root of 81 minus 45. All right, square root of 81 would be 9 minus 3 equals, what's 81 minus 45? 36. Square root of 36 is 6. So 9 minus 3 equals 6. Okay, so it checks. We will practice some more of those again tomorrow, but if you have not done the assignment on 2.1, make sure you practice those. All right, the fourth section of the quiz is a review on transformations. All right, this is kind of miserable, and I don't think they're really this hard on the quiz. But the parent function here would be the square root of x. Can anybody tell me the order of the 3 things that happen here? The order of operations would say, if I put a 9 in here for x, the first thing you would do is square root it, and then you would do what? Multiply it by 3. So this is going to be our first thing. Then you would add 4. And then the third thing is you'd worry about what's outside the parentheses, which is this opposite. Okay, so what is the 3 doing? It's a stretch or a shrink. It's a vertical stretch. Yep. Okay. The second thing, what does a plus 4 do? Is it underneath the parent function? No, it's not. So it's not under the radical. So it's a vertical shift up 4. And then what does this opposite do out on front on the whole thing? It reflects it over which axis? Yes. No. It reflects it upside down, so that's over the x-axis. All right, what is the difference on this one over here? Here, you would tell me, if I put a 9 in here, you'd multiply it by a -3, right? So really, you could tell me either one of these two things. I would say that one first and then that one, but I don't care. Both of those will be, and then the last thing you're going to do is this one. All right, so what's the difference? There is a reflection over the x-axis. Yep, the vertical stretch first. Then reflect over the x-axis. And then shift up 4. Are they going to be the same thing? Think about that. If I distributed this negative, would I get this? No, I'd get a -4. They're not the same thing. And you could graph them to show. I just don't want to run out of time. I'm actually going to skip this one. Yeah, I'm going to skip that one for now. Okay. What about this one, guys? This says use a cubic function, which is an x cubed. How do I vertically compress it by 1/2? Inside parentheses or outside? Okay. So right now, the only parentheses would be here. And I'm going to put a vertical compression by 1/2 outside. How do I shift it down 5? Okay. And then reflect over the x-axis. But how am I going to know that I'm doing that third? I would need the whole thing in parentheses and then a negative. Yes. All right, how would I take a cubic and reflect it across the y-axis? Anybody remember what reflect across the y does or is? It is inside. So we'd have -x cubed. How do I move that to the right 4? Inside of -4. And I think we'd have to do this. This one is, yeah, there's not one like this on the quiz. I should have skipped this one. And then up 7. Oh, right 4 should be minus. Yep, thanks. Yep, this is not, I don't want you to study on that one. That one's going to confuse you. Just describe this one to me, not this one. It's a cube root graph that's had what done first? Inside the parentheses, so it shifted. Horizontal shift. That's supposed to be an H, sorry. Horizontal shift left 5. Then what's the negative inside the cubic doing? Cube root. Over the y-axis, good job. So it used to be going this way, and now it's going this way. Okay, that was really bad. And then the last one is the plus 10. Okay. If you were doing this one, you'd want to take out the negative and go like this, and that's gross. It's not on the quiz. Okay. My goodness. Is this the last one before we talk about these? Okay. I'm going to go kind of quick because you're supposed to know how to do this. It was actually on another quiz. What is the quadratic? Just a parabola, right? Okay. So we already did this on a quiz because this is the general form for a quadratic, right? So where's this one have a vertex at? Okay, some of you struggled because you didn't put the right point in the right place. The vertex is H and K, right? The other points you're going to put in eventually as an X and a Y. I'm going to do it in 2 separate steps so you're not confused. If I put in this for H and K, it'll be X plus 2 squared minus 6. Now we're putting this point in to find the stretch. 24 equals A, 8 plus 2 squared minus 6. And be super careful because all of this is multiplied together. So what do we do first? Yeah, let's add the 6 over here and get 30. And at the same time, we can take care of this. That would be 10 squared would be 100A. So if we divide by 100, we get 3/10. I reduced in my head. Is everybody okay? Guess what, guys? It's going to be ugly like that, okay? Because I want you to have to substitute it in, not just be able to guess. All right, that leaves us with the worksheet you picked up at the door today. All right. Transformations by matching. There is a parent graph and three graphs you have to match tomorrow, okay? So I'm thinking for lack of time, we're just going to see if we can do these one at a time rather than go through all of them. This is the parent. So it was crossing Y here. It had an order point over here. And somewhere roughly over here, there was 1. Okay. X's or Y's changed. Is it any taller than it was? No. So X has changed, right? It appears that this point is here, where it was almost crossing. This is maybe over here. So what do you think? Right a couple? Yep. Which one would be to the right a couple? Yep. All right. What do you notice about B? Did the X's change or the Y's changed? Guys, the Y's did not change. It's going to the same height. It's been pinched in, right? Okay, if it's been pinched in and the X's changed, where's the change going to happen? On the inside. Okay, so we have on the inside, we have, this has got a little bit of an inside change. Okay, which one makes it pinch in? Multiply by something, so number 2, yep. This is a horizontal shrink. All right, C. Yes, the Y it's not as tall anymore, right? Okay, so it was crossing over here, it's still crossing over there. So the X values didn't change, the Y's did. And what does it appear happened to the Y's? Yeah, it shrunk. So something like a half on the outside. Is there something like that? There is. It's just hard to see, Justin, buddy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I didn't write it that way in the quiz. I would put the 1/2 out front, but dividing by 2 is the same as the 1/2. All right, D, X's or Y's changed? Still the same height, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't think it just shifted though, did it? I think we should come back to that one. All right, what's obvious about this one? It's reflected over the X, which would make a negative out front. But I think it's also stretched. So yes, good call. What about this one? This one is reflected across the Y. What change is reflected across the Y? A negative inside. So I need a negative inside, so I have this choice or this choice. So is it stretched or just shifted up? Well, this one, if you reflected this, would be like this, and if you shifted it up too, that should be up here. I think it's stretched. Oh yes, I think it's number 4. Yeah, they're not quite this complicated on the quiz. Their answers are on the back.